Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Kelly with the Garden Club of Alexandria. I am going to do a workshop on the Phoenix arrangement this afternoon. The schedule for May for both Hunting Creek and the Garden Club of Alexandria is based on Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was one of the most renowned figures of the 20th century. She was a prolific poet who explored numerous themes in her poems, including that of women, love, loss, music, struggle, discrimination, and racism. She has been referred to as the people's poet and as the Black woman's poet laureate. The poem that is our inspiration this month is Still I Rise, and the following is an excerpt. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. And when I looked at the excerpt, I noticed a couple of descriptive words that I'm going to base the design off of. She talks about twisted lies, trotting me in the very dirt, and that was my inspiration for the base of the arrangement. The Phoenix design is based on the mythological bird which lived for 500 years or more, set itself on fire, and rose from the ashes to live again. Rebirth and a round, symmetrical form are the basis of the design. The plant material at the base is traditional and compact, a radial design with very little space between material. The burst of material emerges from its center. Form, scale, and proportion are important elements and principles of this design. The design has a base of flowers which is compact and round. Rising from the center are tall flowering branches or other linear material representing rebirth and renewal. Stems should radiate out at the top. They also should emerge from a tight center point in the arrangement. I'm taking quite literally, this container has a little bit of height. They mentioned that low containers are preferable in this type of design, but I liked having a little bit of height coming up to balance off the height that we're going to have. I have a pin frog in the center here, and I will just put water in here. I'm not going to do that until after the arrangement. To look like ashes and dirt, I'm using moss, sphagnum moss, not sphagnum, just kind of in a round. I'm trying to get it as round as possible on the shape. Even though the container top is square, I'm trying to make the illusion of the round base and make room for the pin cushion so we can get the other elements in easily. I'm going to start with 3 sticks that I'm going to position so they radiate out at the top. So they'll come from the center of the frog, and I'm going to turn them so they all are turning outward, which is critical to the arrangement. Sometimes it's difficult to get them into the frog. And I want them to be distinctive, but yet give the radiating feel. Because I want to interpret the poem with some thorny branches, and she talked about twisted lies. So I'm going to put in just rose twigs that I cut from my rose bushes out front that are kind of thin and flexible, and I'm going to just stick them in to the moss, to the Spanish moss, and give a feeling of a twisted kind of, and show the thorns as much as I can. Now, these are just sticks, so I'm able to kind of bend them, but they're very thorny, so I'm being very careful. And but I just want to give the illusion that, and this is more it's not as interpretive as it could be, using stuff that really looks like the ashes and stuff. And a lot of people do not tend to do something like this. They would consider it ugly. But I think for this particular arrangement, and I'll do a second arrangement that is a little prettier and has a prettier interpretation. I am going to put this on the turntable so I can see it and then turn it around for y'all. I could even leave in some of this really dead material, but I don't want to go that far. To get this kind of in the middle, but have it up at the top. That piece in first, and then work the other ones around it. They're easier to, they don't have thorns. put some little buds coming out of the messiness in the bottom so it doesn't look too tragic. And again, you want your plant material to emerge from the center as much as you can. So it does look like it's coming from the center and spreading out. And I'm going to use these pretty roses to show the rebirth. And we don't want to overload this design with plant material. It should be concise. It is considered a contemporary design. And I'm thinking maybe when I decide the best front view, if I can get that to behave. I will put a few at the bottom just to pull the color through the entire arrangement. These sticks are fantail willow. I love to arrange with them because they have more meat to them and they always have beautiful shapes. But it's the best time to get your fantail willow is this time of year. It's usually available and fresh during the garden week time. I always buy several bunches of them and keep them on hand and cut on them all for the rest of the year. I'm just going to group 3 roses here at the bottom to balance off the height. Kind of tucked in around this thorny branch here. And working with pin cushions, it's always difficult to keep it all in place, especially when you're going this high with things. This just is not what I want. So this would be something you'd want to work on once you got it in place. You need to get it the way you want it. The trifold boards will help you when you're entering a show, other than, you know, our club shows. They're usually using these trifold boards to define the space, and it also helps you showcase the arrangement. I have them in white, black, and blue, royal blue. I think white is the way to go with this because the pink and the minimal green really pop out. And I think I'm going to cut the bottom of this off and try to get this to behave a little better. I might have had an angle on the cut. Oh, that looks much better. Okay. And that's another trick when you're working with a pin cushion. It's much easier to do a flat cut on the bottom of the stem. It has more coverage to hold in the, so keeping that spaced. What it would be entered as. And I will do another one that's a little more traditional with all cut garden flowers from my yard. This I did by the roses. This is the traditional low container. I have put one of my mother's old-fashioned frogs in it that have the flexible wires that are much easier to deal with. So this won't be as hard to do. And then I took clear tape and just boxed off here because I'm going to put a plant material around the bottom, and this will give it some support on the edges as well. This, I am not going to have an ugly bottom, but I do have this, this is false cypress, it's called golden mop, and I think this is kind of gnarly looking. So even though it's green and beautiful, I think it will give us the effect that the poem is going for. And so I'm just gonna, now, this, got to keep it low. And I'm gonna come in, after I get a base of this, I'm gonna come in with some hellebore, which will give us a more mounded effect. But I think this interpretation calls for a lot of texture. And I love to arrange with texture. Just going to try and get a good base here. Just for the gnarly effect. And then I'm going to come back and soften it with the hellebore. Radiating tall material is going to be hydrangea, oak leaf hydrangea, that I have just edited each stem down to just a few little leaves at the top. So you see the limbs are very woody and textural, so they will hold up against the other texture here. And I'm just going to show you what I did. I just took that and I started cutting off the biggest leaves first, and then decided, you know, once I got the big leaves off, I think that's a good amount of at the top. You've got the buds that are just starting. So with this one, again, I don't want it higher than the board will be. So I'm just going to stick that board right there for now to make sure I have my height. That will be right. And you got to get your this doesn't want to hold it as nicely as the pins did. This has been used so much that let me push these together a little more. There. For now. I do want to use my lilac is going out. So I've cut most of these down to just little bits, so they won't stick up too high. are still very big. I'm just going to take off the bottom pieces so they're not out of scale and don't mess up the lines of the mounded material. But they will give a little color at the bottom. Sometimes the bottom of this arrangement will almost be a pave. It'll be perfectly smooth with a pave. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but a lot of times you'll see that. Yeah, I'm just trying to hide the color deep down in here, so it will be a nice mound. I think I'm going to do some more of the cypress. Get a little texture up in close. Make sure the mechanics are covered. And just have that gnarly feel coming out of the center as well. There. And this is sticking out too much, so I'm just going to trim that off a little bit to have more of a mounded effect. Okay. And for the additional height on this, I'm using my Solomon seal, and I have stripped the leaves off. I've just stripped it all the way, so mostly I have just 2 little leaves at the top, depending on the stem. But they're pretty 2 little leaves. I'm just gonna, I don't want these quite as high as the, need to balance out without taking away from the focus should be the hydrangea sticks. So, the little white bells from the Solomon seal are so pretty and add a wonderful addition of color and texture. I think I like the higher ones in the back and showing the Solomon seal coming out. I like the taller one in between the two tall sticks. And these shorter ones radiating around the shorter stick. And so, I actually think these two don't look like they're coming right from the center, so I'm going to realign them so they actually feel more like all of it's springing in the same place. I'll show you what it looks like with a white board, and then I'm going to put a black board behind it. You can decide which you like better. I think the white on the Solomon seal is such an integral part of the design, and I think the white background kind of makes that, it helps you lose a little bit of that color. So let's try a black board. And I think that really makes the plant material pop much better. And the black background would be a great background to photograph it with, because the plant materials will stand out from the background. And especially in a digital environment that we're using these days, you really need to think about the color of your background. And it just depends on your plant materials and how it works. Let me get it off that ugly turntable and you'll have a better view. So, there you go. Good luck and have a great May meeting.